Hey, Beastista here, and welcome to Week 7 of the VDL. This week we're playing against the Baltimore Pangorioles, who is currently first in the division. So currently we're 3-3 and they're 5-1, and this is definitely a huge match once again for kind of figuring out if I can make playoffs, and definitely not an easy match. So let's go into the matchup. So looking at my team, my opponent's team on the right, they definitely have a very concerning because Aerodactyl is very good into my team. It has stab super effective damage in my team. It outspeeds my entire team or speed ties. And in addition to that, it can set up Tailwind, which lets it continually outspeed my team. In addition to that, they have Fake Out and Togedemaru, which has electric coverage, stab coverage, which does very good damage into pretty much everything that's not Thunderous and Landorus on my team. Other than that, Nidoking is incredibly powerful with their Ice Beam, Thunderbolt coverage, and he has Rock coverage and does massive damage output. And the Azumarill is also a Pokemon that's pretty concerning, especially because it has Lightning Rod support with the Togedemaru. Here we and then they also have Lunatone, which was really sad pickup for them because now it kind of makes a lot of my plans a little bit awkward. And it lets them have like a more convincing Trick Room mode with the Azumarill and the Lunatone. So anyways, with that, we can kind of look at my team. So here's my team. So we got Multiscale, Mystical Water, Dragonite. The reason behind this is because I can't really survive an Ice move with Dragonite consistently without a Yachi Berry, and Aerodactyl's Unnerve is really annoying. And so I decided to go with Mystical Water, Multiscale, and water coverage in order to hit most of the team. The Aquatel with Mystical Water should one-shot most Nidokings. It should one-shot more offensive Lunatones. It should one-shot Aerodactyl. And the Aquajet helps finish off, pretty low damage Pokemon, especially, if they can get a Tailwind and I can't, or if they have faster Mons. Next, we have Safety Goggles Crobat. This is mainly a way to kind of prevent Trick Room turn 1 if I want, because I have that with Whirlwind. I don't know how Trick Room oriented they will be, but I definitely don't want to risk it. And also, I don't expect Volcarona, but I wanted to bring Safety Goggles just in order to kind of make sure they can't do that. Other than that, I decided to not deal with the speed tie of Aerodactyl and Crobat. I could have tried to, and that might be, optimal, but I decided against it and decided to just, outspeed their fastest non-Aerodactyl Mon and have Tailwind, Brave Bird, Crunch, which hits most of their team pretty well, and get a little bit more offensive and bulk than I would otherwise if I had to go with max speed. Next, we have Choice Scarf Thunderous. Thunderous outspeeds, I made sure it outspeeds max speed Nidoking. Other than that, it does massive damage. Thunderbolt should one-shot the Azumarill and the Aerodactyl. I have a lot of Electro Web to get around Lightning Rod on the Togedemaru. And then we have Dark Pulse, which hits most of their Mons for neutral. And then Psychic, which has a chance to one-shot most Nidokings. Next, we have the Landorus. The Landorus is kind of a mixed special and physical attacker. The Earth Power hits Togedemaru, Nidoking, and should one-shot both of them. And then we have Rock Slide to hit the Pokemon with Levitate and Flying. And then the Iron Tail, which can also help a little bit with the Aerodactyl and can hopefully one-shot most their Lunatone. Next, we have Choice Band Skarmory, which I decided Skarmory couldn't be as bulky as I wanted this week, and so I decided that to use Sturdy as a kind of a second focus dash, and then the Choice Band ends up doing pretty big chunks of damage with Body Press, Iron Head, Dual Wing Beat, and Night Slash. Iron Head should pretty much guaranteed one shot. On all the Rockmons, it also does like 80% into Nidoking, and also this takes pretty good, or does pretty well defensively into the Aerodactyl. Finally, we have the Assault Vest Articuno. The idea behind this Articuno is that if they don't focus too much on their Rockmons, it is very good. It's particularly good into the Azumarill, and particularly good into some of the Mons that I don't super expect to see, but if they bring them, it'll definitely be helpful against those. So with that, let's get into the match. So here we are for game 1. Look at my opponent's team. They pretty much have what I was expecting them to see. I wouldn't have been surprised if one of these Pokemon was exchanged for Volcarona, but these definitely were the big Pokemon I was expecting to see. So my main plan game one lead was to lead Crobat and Dragonite because that kind of covers almost any possible lead they can do. And then Thundurus, Therian was definitely the Pokemon in the back, and the other one is kind of between the other three, and decided to go with Landorus. So let's get into the match. So my opponent leads Aerodactyl, Nidoking, and I lead Dragonite and Crobat. With Multi-Skill, I should be able to take any attack from these Mons, and so the main idea is basically I'm just going to go for the Aqua Tail, which should one-shot Nidoking, and then Tailwind, because if they have Tailwind and I don't, I definitely think I'm in a very bad position generally. So they go for the Ice Beam, and they reveal that they Choice Scarf Nidoking, which is not too surprising. That's definitely something I prepped for, and they are able to get their Tailwind up. I also am able to get my Tailwind up, and the Aqua Tail should pretty much guarantee kill Nidoking if it hits, and we see that it hits here, and we do in fact get the one-hit KO, which is pretty big here. So here they end up bringing out Rotom, and so I decided to just go for a Protect in order to, stall out their Tailwind a little bit, especially because I think there's a good chance that they might try to kill the Dragonite here and get a Crunch off into Rotom, which should probably be close to 2-hit KO. And so here they go for the Rock Slide with the Aerodactyl. And the Aerodactyl's Rock Slide ends up doing quite a bit of damage to Crobat. And my Crunch goes into the Rotom, and it ends up doing just a little bit over 50%. However, they reveal that they are Citrus Berry, and they end up healing a little bit. It's very strange because though that they're Citrus Berry, that Crunch did a little bit more than I was expecting for something that's bulky. So it seems like it's not that bulky. And so here they end up getting the Shadow Ball off, and so my Crobat ends up being low. I don't really want to switch in because my Thundurus is pretty frail in the back, and my Landorus is scarfed. So here I think pretty much the play is just to go for an Aqua Jet to get some chip damage, and then go for a Crunch and hope that they possibly miss the Rock Slide. So Rotom goes for a Protect, and we get the Aqua Jet off into the Aerodactyl, and it ends up doing about 60%, and they hit the Rock Slide and it double connects, which is definitely sad, but they get the double KO here. So here I bring out the Thundurus and the Landorus in the back, and I feel like I'm in not the worst shape, but the big question is because my Thundurus is scarfed, I'm kind of in this little bit of an awkward situation where I need to kind of predict what Pokemon is in the back, because I can go for a Psychic or a Dark Pulse or a Thunderbolt, depending on what the best or what might be best in the back. Because if it's Zoomerol, I likely want to go Thunderbolt. If it's Togedemaru, I probably want to go Dark Pulse, and if it's Nidoking, or if it's but because it's Lunatone and with Togedemaru, I want to go Dark Pulse. I decided to go with Dark Pulse as my move, and I go with the Rock Slide here, just to be able to do a little chip damage onto Rotom, and hopefully 2 Rock Slides should kill. They end up going for the Protect on the Aerodactyl here, and the Dark Pulse goes into the Aerodactyl, and my Rock Slide goes, and we get pretty reasonable chip onto the Rotom here, but it looks like I'm just short of a 2-hit KO. And they end up getting the Shadow Ball off, which ends up doing pretty good damage, but is not a 2-hit KO on the Thundurus here. So now I think the Dark Pulse into the Aerodactyl seems pretty safe, since they probably won't accept me to outspeed, since I haven't revealed I'm Scarf yet. And so I should hopefully get that kill, and then single target Rock Slide probably kills Rotom here. So they surprisingly switch out Aerodactyl. This definitely makes me think that they're kind of reading that I do have a Choice Scarf on my Thundurus. However, we are able to get the Dark Pulse off, which does a little bit over 50% into the Togedemaru. And we missed the Togedemaru with the Rock Slide, which is not that big of a deal, but as we see, the Rock Slide just barely misses out on the kill. And here we were able to take a Shadow Ball, but we don't take it particularly well. And so here I just go for the Dark Pulse into the Rotom and a Rock Slide again. I'm expecting the Togedemaru might fake out, but even if they do, I feel pretty okay because the Rock Slide should kill the Rotom, or the Dark Pulse should kill the Rotom, and so they end up faking out into the Landorus, and the Dark Pulse does in fact kill the Rotom. And so now we're pretty much in a guaranteed win condition, assuming that their Aerodactyl can't take this Dark Pulse, which it shouldn't, based on how much the Aqua Jet did. It doesn't seem like its HP is that bulky. So unless it's very especially bulky for some reason, we should be in pretty good shape to get the win here. And so we just Dark Pulse and Earth Power into the Togedemaru. This also could be a little helpful at possibly revealing if they are, in fact, Sugar Berry. They go for a Helping Hand, which is good information to reveal. And we end up getting the Dark Pulse and killing the Aerodactyl. If they double connect with that Rock Slide, I believe that's probably a double KO. And so that definitely makes sense with their decision to do that. But we are able to get the double knockout and able to get the game one win. So overall, that went pretty well, but let's get into game two. So here for game two. So game one went really well for me, and so I'm expecting them to possibly try to go with something like a Azumarill or Lunatone. And so I'm thinking of ways in which I can kind of punish that. And I know Skarmory is pretty good into both of those, and so I'm thinking that Skarmory seems like a reasonable Pokemon to bring. And so the main question is do I want to switch up the lead or not? The Dragonite Crobat lead is pretty much optimal against everything except the Nidoking lead, as we saw with the Choice Scarf, because instead of doing what they did, if they would have Rock Slide and Ice Beams, it might have caused me some problems. And so I decided to go with the Thundurus, in which the Thundurus Crobat lead is definitely optimal as long as they don't lead Togedemaru. And we bring the Dragonite and the Skarmory in the back, so the Skarmory possibly is a good way to kind of deal with the Lunatone or the Azumarill, which I'm expecting to see since game one went so well for me. So with that, let's get into the match. My opponent leads Togedemaru Aerodactyl, which is really sad because this is definitely a lead in which the Dragonite Crobat lead is very good, and this is the only bad lead that the Thundurus lead has. And so this definitely is a little bit awkward. And so the main question is do I want to, go for a hard read and try to get, expect them to attack, or do I just expect the fake out from the Togedemaru and like the Tailwind? And so I'm kind of deciding on whether or not I want to, just do that. And I decided to just Tailwind and go for an Electro Web. I'm sure I considered switching out, and I honestly think I probably should have switched out here into a Skarmory since the fake out is so obvious. Obviously, the big downside of switching out is that if I take a fake out, which I'm expecting, my Dragonite or my Skarmory loses their Multi-Scale and Stardy respectively. And so here they go for the Tailwind, and I also go for a Tailwind. And so now this is kind of in the situation of what do I expect to see? And I'm expecting that the Aerodactyl is probably going to attack and decide to go for the Electro Wave Crunch, try to get a kill before it moves. This might have been a little bit greedy because we did reveal Aerodactyl has Protect in game one. And so here they end up going for Protect, and I end up kind of wasting my entire turn. In theory, maybe it was better for me to have, gone for, mixing up, maybe doing like a Crunch on one and a like Dark Pulse on one. But definitely didn't work out here because we kind of just waste our turn, and they get a free Iron Head off into Skarmory, which does a little bit under 50%. And so now we can't do much except now I'm locked in Electro Web, so I kind of do the same play. This kind of forces them to switch out, which they do, and they end up switching out into the Nidoking, which is definitely really awkward. As we can see, I kind of had back-to-back turns in which I did very little, especially with the Thundurus, which has literally done nothing this game. If I would have locked into Dark Pulse and targeted the Togedemaru, or if I locked into Psychic, which also might have been a smarter move, I would have been in pretty good shape. But here we end up losing the Crobat, and the Thundurus has done literally 0 damage this far. And so here the main question is, do I want to bring out Dragonite or do I want to bring out the Skarmory? The Dragonite has the ability to one-shot the Nidoking that we saw in game one. And so I decided to bring that out because I should be able to take a double up on either of these Mons. And so I decide to just go for the Aquatel into the Nidoking, which should one-shot it. And the main question is whether or not I should, here it's pretty obvious that I should probably switch out the Thunder since it has done nothing yet, and it likely will do nothing. Definitely really awkward. I think my decision to lock into Electroweb was very greedy, and I probably should have locked into a more consistent move. Because if I was locked into something like Psychic or Dark Pulse, I think I was probably would be in a very good position rather than what I am now, which is not great. So here they get a Azumarill switch in, which is quite annoying, but it's not the worst because now I am pretty good offensively into both of these mons. So now their Tailwind is over though, and so here we get the Dual Wing Beat and the Choice Band Iron Head into the Azumarill. This double up should pretty much be a guarantee hit in Azumarill if I hit with both. And so they do their Zing Zap, which honestly does more than I was expecting with Skarmory's Bulk, and I flinch. And this flinch is devastating because without this flinch, I guarantee kill this Azumarill here. Instead, Azumarill gets an Ice Punch off and is able to kill my Dragonite. So this was terrible luck for me because that flinch, instead of basically being 3-3 Pokemon, I am now in a 2 to 4 Pokemon deficit. And so now we kind of are just forced to bring out Thundurus, and there's not much I can do except, go for a Psychic into the Azumarill spot and then go for the Body Press into the Togedemaru and hope to get the one shot. Obviously, this probably doesn't work because the Togedemaru is going to outspeed me, but I should at least be able to kill the Azumarill here. And so we had to go for the Psychic because of the Nidoking in the back. The annoying part with this is not only that we end up losing Skarmory, is that if we had the flinch ended up being massive. Here right now we would again we'd have a 3-3 versus a 2-4. In addition, the priority Aqua Jet would be huge, and being able to possibly lock into Dark Pulse instead of Psychic would also be huge. However, here we just Psychic and hope to get a crit and maybe get the one shot because Togedemaru doesn't really do that much damage into me. However, we don't crit, and even if we crit, we didn't get the kill there, and they connect with the Rock Slide, end up killing my Thundurus. And so that definitely went bad. I think, honestly, Thundurus did nothing in the first 3 turns it was in. Me leading Thundurus, I think, ended up being my downfall, and I probably should have switched out Thundurus in turn 1 when I had the opportunity to, but I didn't. And definitely, I think that ended up being the downfall of me that game. So here we are for game 4, or game 3. Here we are for game 3. So that went bad. I think that they're probably going to lead the same way, and so I probably should have just lead the way in which I should have led game 2, which is the Dragonite Crobat lead, because I think this lead is pretty good into pretty much everything. It's only bad lead is against the Choice Scarf Nidoking, which it even did not to the worst game 1. And then Thundurus in the back and Landorus in the back seems like the most consistent. And so with that, let's get into the match. So we lead Togedemaru and Aerodactyl again, which is kind of what I expected, and I lead Crobat Dragonite. And so here, the obvious play for them to do is just set up a Tailwind and Fake Out. So I'm going to set up my Tailwind as well and go for the Protect so that they don't break my Multiscale. So the Dragonite protects, and they end up going for the Fake Out into the Dragonite as expected. And they get a Tailwind up, and I also get my Tailwind up. So pretty much what I expected turn 1 to go. And so now the main question is whether or not I want to kind of be targeting to kill the Togedemaru or the Aerodactyl. So here I decided to go for the kill on the Togedemaru. The reason behind this is Thundurus in the back kind of sweeps the rest of their team if I can kill Togedemaru here. I think there's justification for me to kind of Aqua Jet and crunch into Aerodactyl. That double up has a pretty good chance to kill the Aerodactyl, and this gets around the possibility of a Rock Slide flinch. But here I decide to go for the double up, and so here they get the double connect on the Rock Slide again. And in addition to that, I get the crunch off into the Togedemaru, which brings it down to about 50% because I get a lucky crit, and they go for the Zingzac, which honestly doesn't do much damage into the Dragonite, but I get the flinch, and that's such a bad flinch for me. I'm definitely feeling really bad after that. Like I said, maybe I should have gone for the Aqua Jet and the Aerodactyl and doubled up the Aerodactyl instead. That probably would put me in a lot better position. But here, there's not much for me to do except kind of go for the crunch and go for either an Aqua Jet into one of these two mons or Protect. And I decided to go for the Protect and kind of just sacrifice the Crobat. So they switch out the Togedemaru into an Azumarill. And my Dragonite goes for the Protect. And the Aerodactyl goes for the Rock Slide. And it's able to get the kill on the Crobat, which is not the end of the world, especially because that switch out makes Thunderous in the back looking a lot better. And so here, here it's kind of just a situation of kind of predicting of what they're going to do. I'm expecting one of these to switch out into Togedemaru. And so the main question is which one do I expect not to? I know Electro Web Aqua Jet should kill Aerodactyl, but Electro Web by itself won't kill it. And Aerodactyl probably outspeeds my Dragonite even at -1. And so I think the logical play is just Aqua Jet into the Aerodactyl spot here. Obviously, if they protect it, it could be pretty annoying, which they end up protecting, which is very annoying because I feel like a dual wing beat Electro Web probably would have won me the game right here. But they end up going for the Aqua Jet instead of something like an Ice Punch, which definitely is pretty helpful for me. And the Aqua Jet not two-shotting the Thunderous is huge. And so here we end up just going for the Electro Web into the air, and it gets Azumarill into pretty low HP. And now both of our tail ones are done. And so here I'm just going to go for another Electro Web, which would kill the Azumarill. And so the question is, do I go for the Aqua Jet or do I go for something like an Aqua Tail or a Dual Wing Beat predicting the switch out? I decided to just go for the Aqua Jet to get some guaranteed damage. And it is the Nidoking, and we do get the Aqua Jet off into it, which is pretty big. And with that, we're able to see that it actually ends up doing a little bit over 50%, which is huge. And they go for the Aqua Jet, which ends up just missing out the KO, which ends up being really nice. And we get the Electro Web off, killing the Azumarill here. And so now we're not in the worst shape, but it's definitely going to come down to a very close end game here. And they bring out the Togedemaru. So Togedemaru has a clean freak out into either of these mons. And so I decide to save the Thunderous in the back and go for the Protect on the Dragonite because the Aqua Jet on the Dragonite is going to be huge. So yeah, so we switch out and we have the Landorus now. And they fake out the I Protect with the Dragonite, and they end up going for the fake out into the Dragonite as expected, which is pretty nice. And they go for the Icy Wind into both of my mons. And here we luckily have the Focus Sash, but even without that, it ends up not killing, one-shotting me even with that. And so here, it's pretty, I just go for the Earth Power and the Aqua Jet into the Nidoking. Because my Landorus is pretty low, I felt the need to kind of go for the one-shot on the Togedemaru. However, this switch out was very obvious, and maybe I should have read it with the Rock Slide there. However, luckily for us, the Aqua Jet does get the kill. So if I would have read that and gone for the Rock Slide there, I think I actually have the game guaranteed win in my position. However, now we're in this awkward situation where we have to read whether or not the Aerodactyl is going to attack or whether it's going to go for a Tailwind. If it goes for a Tailwind, I need to attack with at least one of my mons. If they go for an attack, then I should protect with both of my mons. And so it's very much just kind of depends on whether or not they're going to Tailwind or not. And so I decide to kind of edge my bet a little bit and protect just the Landorus and go for an Aqua Jet with the Dragonite in order to play around a tailwind setup because 2 Aqua Jets should kill. And so this only gets punished really is if they attack and fake out into my Dragonite specifically. And so I fake out, or I protect, and they fake out into my Dragonite, which is really annoying, but it's still not the end of the world if they don't do that, and they Rock Slide, and it ends up connecting and killing my Dragonite. This is really sad because I think I actually am able to win this game. Pretty much have a very clean win condition if I was able to protect the Dragonite there instead. However, now we're in this very sad situation where it's like, okay, I just need to kind of either hope for a Rock Slide miss, or hope, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I can Electro Web and Rock Slide, or I can hope for a Rock Slide miss. The downside is I can't one-shot the Aerodactyl because of the Togedemaru, and so the main question is, do I want to and if Togedemaru targets my Landorus, I can't hit it with Thundurus, and so the only real play here is to hope for a Rock Slide miss. Obviously, I could maybe hope for the electro, or to do a little more damage. As we can see, this does a huge chunk of damage. We get the Earth's Power off into the Togedemaru, and here I think we should win the game as long as Aerodactyl, if Aerodactyl misses or goes for a Tailwind. And they end up going for the Rock Slide, and they double connect, and I die. So this is definitely a heartbreaking loss. With this, we're now 3-4, and we have very minor, if any, chances of making playoffs. My lead game 1 and kind of my decision not to switch out Thundurus game 1 ended up being terrible for me. But even with that, I think I probably win if my Skarmory doesn't flinch. Because once I'm able to kind of deal with the Azumarill, my Thundurus in the back and the Aqua Jets from the Dragonite, because it wouldn't have died that turn, would have been really helpful. And, game 3 ended up kind of coming down to this really, close game where I think if I read Aerodactyl switch in, or if I read the fake out and Rock Slide, I might have probably had a chance of winning there. But sadly, we ended up losing. But we still have a pretty good chance to be able to get our preseason goals, which is ending with a 4-4 record. And so hopefully with this, we're able to get that next week. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed.